The vaccine rollout has been painfully slow. The federal government is now accepting help from New South Wales and the states and claims that it will be accelerated. Why is this being done now? Shouldn't have this been organised months ago?
Gabriella, I absolutely understand why Australians would like to see the vaccine rolled out even faster than it already has been, but I think we shouldn't lose sight of the progress that has been made. As of yesterday, 841,000 doses of the vaccine had been administered. They're being administered at a rate now of about 80,000 a day, so we're not that far away from achieving a very important first milestone of almost 1 million doses of vaccine administered. There are a range of ways we could, of course, improve the speed of the vaccine rollout in terms of delivery, and that's a shared responsibility between the states and the federal government. But actually the main constraint is the supply of the vaccine. And of course, we couldn't have anticipated that the 3.8 million AstraZeneca doses that we bought and paid for have been blocked from being exported from Europe by the European Union, and that really has slowed down the pace of delivery. Thank God, though, that we do have CSL here in Australia for that sovereign vaccine manufacturing capability. It's been ramping up and soon will be able to produce vaccines at a rate of about 1 million doses a week. Once that hits its capacity, you'll see the rollout accelerating even more fast.
There's a push for Australia to adopt a US-style mass immunisation centre. Do you think that would make a massive difference?
One thing I'd be really interested to see, Gabriella, is the data between the number of doses that are delivered to state governments and actually administered. It'd be really interesting to know whether there is unused vaccine that's sitting around not being administered to people who need it, or whether actually we're just right at the capacity constraints. I've actually been pursuing that issue as the Deputy Chair of the COVID-19 Senate Select Committee, because the National Cabinet initially was publishing the full data of vaccines delivered and administered, but a number of weeks ago they made a decision to only publish the number of vaccines administered, I should say. So we don't actually know how many are being delivered to the states and then being administered, and we don't really know which states therefore are operating most efficiently. I'd like to see that data released. I think that's important for transparency, and that will give us some insight whether other modes of delivery might be more efficient or effective.
Okay. Australia is in a race to secure millions of doses of the vaccine for Pacific nations over China. What would the ramifications be for Australia if China takes the lead to vaccinate the people in the Pacific nations?
We're certainly doing everything we can to assist our friends and neighbours in the Pacific with their vaccine rollout. We've delivered 8,500 doses of AstraZeneca to frontline health workers in PNG. And we've also asked the European Union to consider releasing 1 million of the doses that we had already paid for to be delivered to PNG, because they are dealing with a very serious outbreak at the moment. We don't object to any of our friends and partners making use of any vaccines that are made available to them. Unlike some other countries, we also don't deliver vaccines with any strings attached. We do it out of the goodness of our hearts. And we believe that the vaccines that we will supply to our friends and neighbours in the Pacific, and the $200 million that we're going to spend to assist in rolling it out, will be the highest quality vaccines available. The kind of vaccines that we would use here in Australia will be available to our Pacific friends and family with no strings attached, with the highest standards of regulator approval. So it really is a matter for the sovereign governments of the Pacific to decide which vaccines they would like to use and how they'd like to roll them out, but we stand ready to assist.
Okay, I want to talk to you about the issue of quotas. It's been revealed in the Australian newspaper that the majority of Liberal backbenchers in New South Wales and Victoria are open to adopting quotas. I know you're not in favour of this, but what do you think the solution is to get more women in Parliament?
There's no question, Gabriella, that the Liberal Party needs to do much more to get more women into Parliament. We need to do, in my view, everything other than quotas to do that. The reason why I'm hesitant to embrace quotas is that I think they're fundamentally incompatible with the decentralised democratic way in which we choose our Liberal candidates. Local members in each seat get to choose who their candidate is, and the only way that a quota could be imposed is by some kind of undemocratic central mechanism that says you cannot select a male candidate in this seat, or no men can stand for this seat, and that would disenfranchise local Liberals and take away that choice for them. So I don't support that. I think we need aggressive targets, and we need really well-funded, sophisticated training programs to develop female candidates, to support them and encourage them to put their hands up. We've seen that being successful in some states and in some areas, and we just need to be doing a lot more of that to make sure that we get our numbers up.
So how long do you think it's going to take to get 50% of women in top positions in Parliament without quotas?
Well, if you look at the Victorian division, we've had 4, the most recent plebiscite lower house pre-selections. And in those 4 lower house pre-selections, 2 women were chosen and 2 men were chosen. Also, 2 immigrants were chosen and 2 Australian-born candidates were chosen. A candidate who went to public schools as well as candidates who went to private schools. It's a very diverse group. And so I think when Liberal Party members are empowered to make choices and when they're offered a choice between male and female candidates, they will choose roughly half the time to put female candidates forward. And so the crucial thing is we make sure that we have those local democratic processes underway and that we don't close winnable or certainly safe Liberal seats without offering the choice of at least one female candidate. I think that's really important. I think actually you'll find quite quickly, if you allow those natural democratic processes to happen, that the number of female candidates will be significantly increased.